Death is the ultimate reminder that nothing in the world is permanent. Yet saints and scriptures tell us that we are much more than just this mortal physical frame. They say that within us resides an imperishable soul, an eternal entity that remains untouched by death.
Hinduism believes in two aspects. One is Jivatma, individual soul, Paramatma, universal soul. So the individual soul is part and parcel of the universal soul, Paramatma.
Atma is different from the physical body. It's eternal. Achedya, abhedya, ajara, amara atma. This body cannot be pierced, it cannot be burnt, it cannot suffer. It is different from all those experiences.
Krishna says in the Gita that the soul has no type of sorrow at all. The soul is not black or white. It has no shape. This body in 5 years, 25, 50 or 80 years will perish. But the soul is immortal.
The soul is conscient energy. It's subtle. It's eternal. It's non-physical. And within the soul, the original nature of the soul are the qualities of peace, love, purity, bliss, and power.
Death is a one-way door into the unknown and remains one of life's greatest mysteries. We all yearn for immortality, for life everlasting. Yet in a world defined by impermanence and change, all beings eventually and inevitably succumb to aging, disease, and death. We avoid talking about it, or even thinking about it, as if we are destined to live forever.
In the markets and shops, you will find so many good books and CDs that will explain to you how to live, how to earn money. But have you ever read about the art of dying?
Art of dying.
Learning how to die is an art in itself.
In this two-part series, we explore death, dying, and moksha, or spiritual liberation, through the lens of ancient Vedic wisdom. We speak to local Hindu priests in South Africa, hear personal accounts of overcoming grief and loss, and travel to India to visit its famed city of cremation, its holy rivers, and to hear what one of the country's best-known spiritual teachers has to say on the subject. Many Eastern religions regard death as a mere interlude, where the soul transmigrates from one life to the next, inhabiting numerous physical forms in an evolutionary journey that may take many lifetimes.
One of the fundamental beliefs and philosophies of the Hindu religion is karma and reincarnation. Karma simply is, as you do, so shall you reap. If you do a good action, you reap a good reward. And similarly, if you do anything evil, it comes back to you, basically. And how does that happen? So the soul travels through many millions of births and deaths, and then in those births and deaths experiences the fruits of his actions.
Throughout time, there have been many accounts of past life recollections. People of all faiths and cultural backgrounds have been able to point out events, places, and people from prior lives with astonishing accuracy. Many Hindus take these to be proof of reincarnation.
The body is like a shirt, like an outfit. And once it's tattered and torn, we remove it and get a new one. Same with the soul.
The knowledge of the soul's imperishable nature helps us to better deal with the death of our loved ones.
Every one of us experiences loss and grief at the losing of someone dear to us. And at that time, one becomes devoid of any reasoning at times, and one needs some strength to bring oneself up again. And at that time, the Hindu teachings of the Atma and Anatma, one, the body and the soul, that comes into play, where we talk about what is the difference between this body and this soul.
The ultimate goal of Hinduism is to become free from all attachments and latent impressions called vasanas, thereby escaping samsara, the relentless cycle of birth and death. The individual soul then becomes absorbed in Brahman, the universal consciousness, and attains moksha, a transcendental state of spiritual liberation.
Moksha means ultimate redemption, when the soul feels a supreme peace, supreme joy, everlasting, unlike the body's experiences of pleasure and pain, heat and cold, victory and defeat.
As long as we are in the body, we are bound. We are bound by our need to eat, by our duties to our parents, our kids, and any other relation. But once you are free of all these, then you commence your eternal journey home.
Once moksha is attained, it's believed that the soul is permanently freed from the mortal world with its attendant sorrows of aging, disease, and death.
The human birth considered to be the last of the life cycle. Because as Lord Sri Krishna says in the Gita, that I have given you something, a precious gift to you, that is the knowledge of discrimination, good and bad, what is permanent and impermanent. Through using this highest knowledge, we are able to do all good in our life. We can exit from this life, then we can connect ourselves to the Supreme Soul or the Paramatma. That is called moksha.
That accident occurred 2 minutes from home. I don't know whether she was unwell or whether she jammed her leg on the accelerator, but she went through 2 robots, 2 pillars, and she crashed into a wall.
I was 2 days in London when the phone call came from South Africa telling me that my son had been murdered. It was so painful. I flew back to South Africa. I have to go and identify the body of my child.
Fatima DK and Shobha Singh suffered every parent's worst nightmare when they experienced the heartbreaking loss of a much-loved and cherished child.
Varsha, that's her name, full of life, very friendly, very simple. We listened to each other, and that's how we bonded, and very lovely, very warm somebody.
He was a very nice person, really. But then when he hit his teenage years, everything changed. The whole thing fell apart. And that's where he developed the drug problem.
The sudden and violent nature of Fatima's son's death initially left her consumed with dark thoughts.
For me not to be swallowed up by wanting revenge, every time the question of who killed my son came up, I would quickly send it up to God and say, just take it, just hold on to it. And that helped me a lot. So I was using God as my partner so that I don't fall into that trap.
For both these women, the passage of time, together with their faith in the afterlife, has softened the blow of an overwhelming sense of loss.
So when you sit down to have meditation, the first thing that happens is just to clear your mind of any thoughts that are not about this moment. When the mind goes quiet and it stops chattering, you experience peace. And it's at that time when the mind is quiet that you can totally and completely connect with God. And then through your meditation, sometimes you chat to God. Sometimes you remind yourself of who you really are, that you're not this body, but you are the soul inside the body.
We know that the soul continues on its journey. This body is obviously, it was cremated, it's finished, it's gone. So the soul enters a new body and starts its journey there. But there's always that energy, that the connection is always there.
Hinduism is like a huge banyan tree that is able to accommodate many belief systems. Within it, thousands of different birds are able to come and reside. And in this tree, from birth to death, there are various rituals which we call sacraments.
These sacraments cover rites of passage marking the various stages of human life, including conception, birth, adolescence, and marriage.
You then arrive at the sannyas stage, where you gradually renounce everything. Here you detach yourself from your household while living within that household. So, like this, you accept the concept of death and proceed to the next stage, which is cremation.
So you will see in Hindu religion that the body of one who has died, the body is cremated, in other words, offered into the fire. In that way, the body, which is made of 5 elements, is offered back into the 5 elements.
The ritual helps a lot to bring that closure. Physically you're seeing that form turning into ash and returning back to the earth. It helps to create closure to that physical relationship we had, and in some ways that helps the soul to move on.
So these 5 elements are what we are made of. And as such, we are a fragment of this divine creation. But we don't understand our own true value. We dissipate our time in people and things. We've wasted our time in this way. The 80 to 90 years that we have lived, in truth, we have not recognized who we truly are. So this is the galaxy. And out of the same elements of the galaxy, my physical body has been made, your physical body has been made. Same with the animals. So we ourselves are a part of that universal divinity. That's why we chant the mantra, Aham Brahmasmi, In truth, I am the creator.
Hindu scriptures echo the laws of physics which state that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but is merely transmuted to another form.
So here we have the destruction of the physical body, but not the soul. The same energy that ignites birth ignites death too. That's why we say the mantra.
पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्यात् पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते.
If you subtract 0 from 0, what remains is 0.
The BAPS Swaminarayan Sanstha is a volunteer-driven organization dedicated to promoting Hindu values and culture. They've built more than 11,000 Hindu temples called mandirs throughout the world. Strikingly beautiful expressions of Indian temple architecture, they function as communal places of worship and spiritual development for millions of Hindus.
What does Swaminarayan mean basically? Swami means the Atma, the soul, and Narayan means Paramatma, God. And what is my relation with God? Well, that is what the basic philosophy of Swaminarayan is. My journey towards reaching Paramatma.
The movement is well known for its preservation of Hinduism's many rites and rituals.
Madana Mohana Prema Doha.
This colourful puja is carried out after the death of Swaminarayan followers. Embedded in the simple ceremony are eternal secrets of life and death.
Swaminatate Vapurihastu no Nitya Darshane.
We are made up of 3 bodies. The first one is Sthul, is the physical body. It's what is made of 5 elements. It is born, it grows, it has old age, disease. But there is more to us than just that. And next comes the Sukshma body. Sukshma means subtle. And subtle body consists of our mind, of our thoughts. That travels with that soul when it leaves this body. And the third body is the causal body. We call it the Karan Sharir. It's like maybe a repository, I would say, of all the impressions of the births.
For many, losing a loved one or contemplating their own mortality represents a turning point in their spiritual evolution.
Sansruti means to become fatigued by a monotonous act of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. At the end of some point you have to say, that's it, I've had enough. And that is when one turns to the spiritual path.
At this stage, the soul starts to inquire into the deeper meaning of life.
So one would always come to this at some stage in their life. That why am I here? What is my purpose? And what is my ultimate goal of this human birth? Is it just to amass wealth? Is it just to enjoy the pleasures? Is it just to become prey to all the pains of this world? Or is there some higher purpose? And that is where we refer to the Hindu teachings that the ultimate purpose of this birth, it is to attain moksha, to attain freedom from birth and death.
Her passing did have quite an impact on all of us because it was saying goodbye to a mentor and someone who really sustained you and nurtured you for many, many years.
Losing her revered spiritual teacher was a profoundly meaningful moment for Sister Pratibha Daya.
In March of 2020, just before lockdown, Dadi Janki passed away, and she was the administrative head of the university, and she left us at the age of 104, so it was quite a long life that she had. And right up until her last few days, I would say, she was someone who really gave of herself tremendously.
In her lifetime, Dadi Janki emphasized the importance of living a life marked by purity and simplicity, and these qualities were evident in the manner in which her final funeral rites were conducted.
And so I think, in a way, what she taught me about death is, well, that death is just as natural as birth. And when we learn to just see that everything has its moment and its rhythm, and just the acceptance of it is this understanding that death is just a process of letting go of a body, but that the soul's journey continues. And I think that, in one sense, provides a kind of a feeling that it's not an end, but a continuation.
Kalpana Master lost her husband in a car accident in 1995.
It was something that really shocked me. I never expected something like that naturally to happen.
What compounded her sense of loss was that she had been married for a mere 6 years at the time of the tragedy.
My husband was, like for most people, your life partner, someone that you relied on, someone that was like your confidant, your friend.
At the time, Kalpana had just discovered the Brahma Kumari movement. The nurturing comfort and support of fellow devotees gave her the strength to pull through.
What I really learned is that people's good wishes make such a big difference in your life. And I've carried that through whenever, in any situation, but wherever you are, you can always send your good wishes, your powerful thoughts, and no matter what, that soul will experience that. That soul will be uplifted through that.
The Brahma Kumari movement was started in India in the 1930s. Its founder, Lekhraj Kripalani, began to give spiritual discourses after experiencing a number of mystical visions. Ahead of its time, the organization disregarded the country's deeply entrenched caste system and gave prominence to the role of women in society.
There are 3 key aspects to the philosophy that forms, I would say, the core foundation of the teachings. The first aspect is the understanding that we are spiritual beings living in a physical body, and that the soul is eternal. And within the soul lies everything that we aspire for in terms of peace and happiness and light. And then the second key aspect of it is the understanding of God. Our understanding is that just as we are a soul, a consciousness, God is a supreme consciousness. And then the third aspect, which is an important element, is the relationship between soul, God, and time that forms the whole experience of our lives in this physical dimension.
Kalpana uses journaling as a means to anchor herself through life's many uncertainties.
It's really so much about looking at every situation that you encounter in a different way, a more positive way, to make sure that whatever I'm doing for myself and for others around me makes a good, positive impact.
When we really come to that awareness that we're spiritual beings, then we know that our connection with each other goes beyond just the physical, that the connection is at the level of our thoughts and our presence and our vibrations.
The concept of seva, or charity, forms an important part of Hindu death rituals.
We believe very much in the principle of selfless service, that is to give and not take charity. So to give the departed soul peace, to release it to have a blessed onward journey, we feed cows and other animals. And you can feed anyone. You can feed little children, other individuals. It is all done because this eternal journey is actually a grand celebration.
તો મહોત્સવ છે અનંતની યાત્રાને માટે એટલા માટે આપણે કરીએ છીએ.
Govinda's Goshala, near Pretoria, is a place many local Hindus visit following the death of friends and family. Here, they are given the opportunity to personally feed cows and to conduct ritual prayers to these benign creatures.
We believe everything has a soul. That's why in Hinduism, we look at everything sacred. We worship animals, we worship trees, we worship plants. We see sacredness and life and soul in everything.
Many cultural death rituals are designed to help us process loss and see past debilitating grief. Aside from providing comfort to those left behind, these practices are believed to ensure the peaceful transition of the departed soul to the beyond. In India, these mourning rituals differ from region to region, and in recent times have been adapted to accommodate the COVID-19 pandemic.
We speak different language and we may follow the different traditions. That's why Hinduism is called unity in diversity. But if you look at the bottom line of it, it's all based on the Varnashrama Dharma. Whatever linguistic group you are, the things that what we do, the rites what we do, is 99.9% more or less similar.
માણસ જ્યારે ગુજરી જાય ત્યારે એની પાછળ
When a person dies, in accordance with custom, we perform prescribed ceremonies on the 10th day, 12th day, 13th day.
પછી મહિનાનું સેરેમની થાય.
Then we have a monthly and 6-monthly ceremony.
ત્યાર પછી
And finally ceremonies a year and 3 years after death, after which the soul merges into the Absolute.
યોગમાં એને વિલીન કરવામાં આવે.
Hindu scriptures say that for the first 13 days after death, the soul continues to remain in this earthly dimension. Families will gather during this time to chant bhajans or holy songs about God's compassion and the immortality of the soul. Relevant passages from sacred scriptures, such as the Bhagavad Gita and the Garuda Puranas, are often read aloud. These deal with the journey of the soul through various realms of existence and lay down rules of ethics conducive to spiritual advancement. After performing a homa or fire ritual at the end of the mourning period, it's said that the soul is finally released from its earthly bonds. This is marked by a celebratory feast for close friends and family, which helps to transform feelings of loss and sadness into those of hope and peace. Hindus so revere their ancestors that nearly half a month is allocated each year to remembrance of the departed. Referred to as Pitru Paksh or Shraddh, this sacred fortnight presents an annual opportunity to cherish memories, offer gratitude, and pray for the peace and well-being of beloved friends and family that have passed on.
The reason why we're here today is to have a prayer what we call the 1-year prayer for my late dad. And today's prayer is the culmination of the time period that is required for the soul to reach moksha.
It's a journey of the soul from the Prithvi Loka, from earth to the Swarga Loka, to the heaven. And entire year, as a family, whole family, perform the prayers. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Shubhakaryeshu Sarvada. In Hinduism, every single prayer, when we begin with, we always pray to Ganesha.
Hindu Puranas, or sacred texts, say that by honoring our ancestors, not only do we attain their blessings for a long life, prosperity and spiritual enlightenment, but that performing such rituals with sincerity benefits the entire manifest creation.
So, this logic behind that, the scripture said, it's all the punya karmas, good deeds done by the family, it's reached to the Atman, and Atman is the divine soul.
The Lalu family has enlisted the services of Sri Kiritbhai Acharya from the Radheshyam temple in Johannesburg to conduct these 1-year prayers.
Having a revered priest to do this on our behalf brings about completion. Lots of satisfaction within ourselves, knowing that, everything is done in the proper manner and all protocols have been followed.
The participants, as well as the space in which the puja is to take place, are symbolically purified with sanctified water. This, together with a number of other rituals, is done as the departed soul is now considered a part of the divine.
Devam bhutva yajet deva. Deva means God. When you offer the prayer for the God, you have to be like a God. Not God, but like a God. Now the soul, when leaves the body, he is not just ordinary person like me and you. He is the pure, divine Atman.
At the heart of the prayers is the symbolic offering of rice cakes, called pinda, to the departed soul. This is followed by water libations, which are done to please the gods, the sages, and departed forefathers.
First we offer the water from this action, that Atman to Paramatman, from me, from divine to the divine. And that time we offer Bhagwan names. When we take out water from middle part, we pray to all the sage and saints. Because as per the scripture, these are the mediator. All the sage and saints are mediator. And thereafter we take water and offer it like this. That's for the ancestors. 3 times we said, Idan jalam tasmai namama, o trupyatam.
Departed family members from both the paternal and maternal ancestral lineages are mentioned by name.
Laludasah, idam jalam tasmai namaha, idam jalam tasmai namaha. Idam jalam tasmai namaha.
The proceedings draw to a close with a fire ceremony. It's clear that the Lalu family loved and adored their father and grandfather.
He was an orphan from the age of 6. And he worked hard, built himself up. He's left a legacy behind.
He was a very sweet, humble person. Always, whenever needed help, he was there to help. He always listened, and he just cared a lot for everybody.
We know that we have his blessings and all those ancestors that have passed on before death. We can't forget them. And we cherish those moments that we had with them.
Varanasi, also named Kashi or Banaras, holds near mythical status for India's 950 million Hindus. Said to be the abode of the Hindu god Shiva, it's regarded by many as a sacred bridge between heaven and earth. Popular Hindu belief maintains that if one dies in Kashi, one attains moksha, thus bringing to an end the repetitive cycle of worldly birth and death. The Ghats in Varanasi are world-famous stone embankments found along the banks of the river Ganges. Visitors to the sacred city are often startled to observe how life and death openly coexist in these ancient lanes. And surely one of the most striking sights in the world must be its many open-air funeral pyres always burning. Annually, millions of pilgrims travel here to perform prescribed prayers and ritual ablutions, as well as to carry out the final death rituals of their loved ones. These days, many Hindus are unable to physically travel to Varanasi. Spiritual teachers advise, however, that rather than seeing Varanasi as a physical place in time and space, we should regard it symbolically. Similarly, India's holy rivers hold great symbolic significance. Surrounded by myth and intrigue, they tell the tales of Hinduism through the ages.
Firstly, Hindu religion talks about God who is omnipresent. His divinity pervades this entire universe. And every element of this creation is divine. Nature also is worshipped in that way, revered in that way. So all rivers are special. All rivers are regarded as life-giving.
This is especially true of the river Ganges, which is viewed by many Hindus as so sacred that anyone who takes a soul-cleansing dip in its hallowed waters is believed to be absolved of all past sins.
Certain rivers in India have a special historic and scriptural significance, which make them more special. When a person dies and the ashes are offered, usually internationally people will offer those ashes into a local river, because all rivers represent God's divinity and the element of water. But a bit of ash is sometimes taken to India and taken to one of the holy rivers, be it the Ganges, be it Yamuna or the Triveni Sangam. And we also regard those rivers as purifying, that soul who has left that body, its journey further becomes that much more easier, if I could say, by association with those holy rivers.
Hinduism has thousands of gods and goddesses, each expressing a different manifestation of the one supreme being. And of this vast pantheon, Lord Shiva is one of the most loved. He forms part of the Holy Trinity, along with Brahma the creator and Vishnu the preserver.
Shiva is the moon, he is the sun, he is the mountain, he is the ocean. He is the air, he is the fire, he is everything.
The one who shows you the road when you're lost is Shiv. Not just this road, but we've forgotten this cycle of life, and Shiv shows us the way here.
At the end of the cycle of creation, spanning billions of years, it is Shiva who is said to destroy the manifest universe, dissolving it into nothingness. Metaphorically, this aspect of Shiva is there to remind us that all that we love and know, the entire manifest world, will dissolve and perish with time.
Bilvashtaka archanam garishye tiritalam tirigunakaram tirinetram.
Praying to Shiva is believed to obliterate our mental impurities, thus making us ripe for moksha or enlightenment.
It is our Hindu understanding, Lord Shiva considered to be a giver of moksha.
As Lord Shiva represents both death and simultaneous recreation, praying to him at this time takes on great significance.
Lord Shiva is in the Mount Kailash, and that's why even we keep the body, the dead body, towards the direction of Kailasam. So we face our head towards the Kailasam because that's our ultimate destination.
Shiva's Mahamrityunjaya, or death-defying mantra, is one of the most revered of all Hindu mantras. Chanting it regularly and with devotion is said to guarantee freedom from mortality and confers courage and calmness when faced with death. Lord Shiva himself is said to have bestowed humanity with this mantra, and today Hindus the world over chant this mantra when faced with loss, grief, illness and calamity.
એટલા માટે એનો મંત્ર છે ત્રંબકમ.
Therefore we say Trambakam Yajamahe. It's symbolic of the three elements of fire, wind and the sun. Yajamahe. Death is a grand occasion for celebration. Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam. Be at peace. If you are disturbed, depressed, fearful, then you will not be able to taste the bliss of death. And we have to experience the bliss of both life and death. Urva Rukamina Bandhanat. These are all fetters. Husband, wife, son, daughter, parents, this body. They all bind us and we need to be freed from these bondages. Mrityu Mukshi Yamamritat. You have to gain victory over death. You are living in fear of death. But if you accept death, you will be able to conquer death. It is only then that you will have realized the ultimate purpose of your life.
According to Hindu metaphysics, death is not a dreaded calamity to be feared, but is a natural part of life's inherent cosmic rhythms. When looked at with the eye of Vedic wisdom, we come to realize that our true nature is untainted, constant, unborn, and eternal. In next week's episode, we travel to India to meet world-renowned spiritual teacher, His Holiness Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, to find out more about the Hindu perspective on death and moksha. We also share personal stories of overcoming grief by some of the followers of his Art of Living Foundation.